Hello and welcome everyone. Today's video features a full review guide of the Tier 9 Premium American Hybrid Battleship USS Kearsarge. During the interwar years, aircraft were recognized to have an incredible scouting and striking potential, although many still believed that the battleship would be the decisive weapon on the battlefield. It was also believed that fleet carriers would have to defend themselves when such a fleet engagement was fought, and one such design, known as Project 1058.1, was intended to act as both a surface warship and as a carrier, and was drawn up by Gibbs and Cox for the US Navy. It was seriously considered, but ultimately rejected and never built. The USS Kearsarge is based on this design. The Kearsarge is described in-game as based on a unique project of a powerful battleship aircraft carrier that was developed in the United States in the latter half of the 1930s. Now, Kearsarge will be available for 228,000 coal. For doubloons, the minimum price in the armory will be 19,300, and for various price bundles in the premium store. So let's take a look at what the Kearsarge is capable of by looking at the ship's complete stats, which are based on this exact combination of captain skills and upgrades, and what I'm using in this gameplay. What might catch your eye is the fact I've chosen the secondary upgrade over the range mod in slot 3, as I just felt the slow shell speeds made it very difficult to land hits reliably at long range. And I've also gone for the artillery plotting room mod in slot 6 for decreased dispersion, although main battery mod 3 is also valid. So let's start with the Kearsarge's armor layout. Using a simple port screenshot, we can see both the complete fore and aft end sections get complete 32mm coverage. The main deck and upper casemate armour, along with the flight deck, all get 38mm of armour plating, while the superstructure gets 19mm. The main belt armour is 330mm, both slightly above and below the waterline, while there is a submerged section which gets 254mm of protection. The main battery gun turrets get a frontal plate of 406mm, rear and side plating of 254, and finally a top plating of 190mm. I encountered a number of weaknesses with this armour layout. Firstly, the absolutely large amount of target area on the flight deck and superstructure just simply soaks up damage. Secondly is the huge amount of 38mm coverage. Any kind of German cruiser shooting you with high explosive will inflict scary damage, so you have to be very careful with your positioning and picking your opponents. Kearsarge does get a lot of hit points, with a total of 84,300, which does put it at the high end at tier 9, only behind the Musashi and equal with the Friedrich der Grosse. This hit pool is further boosted by having 5 repair parties, and then finally, survivability wise, Kearsarge gets a torpedo protection damage reduction of 24%. Moving to the main battery, Kearsarge gets 12 406mm guns in 4 triple mounted turrets, equally divided with both 2 fore and 2 aft. With this build, they have a reload time of 36 seconds, can rotate 180 degrees in 36 seconds, and have a base firing range of 19.6 kilometers, with a max dispersion of 228 meters at this range. And these guns have a sigma of 1.9. Should you choose to give up the better accuracy and go with main battery mod 3 in slot 6, you can get this reload time down to 31.7 seconds. Kearsarge can fire both high explosive and armor piercing rounds, The high explosive can inflict a max damage of 5700, they can penetrate 68mm of armour, and have a 36% chance of setting the target on fire, with a shell speed of 820 meters per second. Kearsarge's armour-piercing rounds can inflict a max damage of 13,100, but do have a rather slow shell speed of just 701 meters per second. Just for comparison, Iowa, Missouri and Minnesota all have 762 meters per second shell speed with the same gun caliber. These armor-piercing rounds though are pretty decent, although the slow shell speed does take a bit of getting used to, but having 12 406mm guns with good dispersion really does give you real deletion power should the opportunity arise. Kearsarge gets an additional 20 127mm secondary guns in 10 twin-mounted turrets. These secondary guns have a reload time of 5.7 seconds, firing high explosive rounds with a max damage of 1800. They can penetrate 21mm of armour with a 5% chance of setting the target on fire, with a firing range of 8.8 kilometers and a shell speed of 792 meters per second. Kearsarge, being a hybrid battleship, also gets attack aircraft armed with Tiny Tim rockets. These attack aircraft get 1840 hit points with a speed of 176 knots, with a max speed of 216 knots when using the engine boost, which has a 5-second duration. There are 5 aircraft per attack squadron, each capable of firing 3 rockets with a max damage of 5400, so quite a large alpha strike potential. These Tiny Tim rockets can penetrate 68mm of armour and have a 33% chance of setting the target on fire. These attack aircraft have a restoration time of 120 seconds, so basically you can launch a strike every 2 minutes. One downside I found with these rockets is they do have rather a long aiming process, so you do have to take quite a bit of care leading the target, making strikes against destroyers really quite challenging, but against battleships and cruisers they are capable of doing significant damage. Moving to the AA defense, Kearsarge gets a rating of 80 with 88 AA guns in total, ranging from 20mm right up to 127mm. All combined, they pump out a continuous average damage of 338, with the majority being medium and long range damage. The advantage of this is you can actually shoot down planes before they drop, as opposed to shooting them down after they have already dropped their ordnance. Kearsarge can fire 10 shell explosions per flak salvo, which really does feel quite strong, and each have a max damage of 1610, with a max firing range of 5.8 kilometers. Kearsarge has the advantage of Tier 9 matchmaking, which really helps in avoiding CV games, but when faced with aerial assault, this AA generally performed pretty well. It doesn't mean you can go all lone wolf and sail solo around the map, as you will still get picked off by a competent carrier player, but even grouped with one AA cruiser, Kearsarge poses a significant threat for attacking planes. Dealing with constant torpedo attacks will pose a major threat, however, as Kearsarge is not the most manoeuvrable of battleships. Kearsarge gets a base speed of 30 knots, which can be increased to 31.5 knots when mounting the Sierra Mike signal flag. It has a large turning circle of 1050 meters and a rudder shift time of 14.7 seconds. Now this is going to present serious problems when maneuvering to avoid torpedoes, further compounded by the addition of submarines now in the game, which are still currently being tested in random battles. The reason I bring this up is Kearsarge has no anti-submarine warfare capabilities. So unless the submarine is actually on the surface, Kearsarge is powerless to deal with any submerged threat, having no access to any kind of depth charges. Personally, I do consider this a major disadvantage. Wargaming stated in a recent dev blog that all surface ships would receive anti-submarine warfare options, except the hybrid ships. So, for the moment, no depth charge options of any kind. So finally, stats-wise, Kearsarge gets a concealment rating of 43, with a full stealth build, which equates to a surface detection range by enemy ships of 13.3 kilometers, and by enemy subs at periscope depth and enemy aircraft at 11.4 kilometers. So this is the brand new American Premium Hybrid Battleship, USS Kearsarge. I feel quite conflicted about this ship, to be brutally honest. It looks very much at odds with my concept of great-looking battleships in this game, of which there are many. Many will go so far as to call it an eyesore. My biggest issues are, however, how the ship plays. With this huge surface area that is very lightly armoured, Kearsarge eats a ton of damage, regardless of how you angle, which makes positioning so very important, and pushing very difficult. I really dislike the lack of anti-submarine warfare in a game mode where there are currently a lot of subs active. It's not unusual to see 2 submarines on the enemy team, and your only counter is to spot them while they're on the surface with your attack aircraft. Feels very limited. With that being said, the main battery feels really good, having 12 406mm guns that perform quite well, and these tiny Tims, they can hit like a truck. But on the most part, there just seems too many trade-offs for this. So I hope I was able to provide you some useful information on the Kearsarge, on how it performs. Whether you are interested or not, it's always useful to know what to expect when you meet the Kearsarge on the battlefield. If you have any questions, I stream regularly on Twitch during the week, so feel free to come on over. Even if you want to simply hang out for some chilled out gameplay, you can see the link here on screen and in the video description below. I look forward to seeing you all. I'd like to thank you once again all for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more. Take a moment to check out some of my most recent videos and leave a comment below. And until the next time, keep sailing it like you stole it.